Okay, here we go. The Diablo 4 quarterly update for June, and we're expecting this to be on the D4 Necromancer. We hope you enjoyed the last blog. Congratulate Immortal on its launch. Okay. We're going to look at the final launch class. Okay. Think of the blog as a companion to the announcement. Adam Jackson doing a deep dive into the play styles. Committed to the principle of player choice. Shapes how we approach many of our systems, character customization to the density and the layout of the open world. The Book of Dead focuses on the idea of choice of what kind of necromancer you want to be. Okay. Joe Shelley, the game director. Okay, we already watched this 100 times, so let's keep going. Thrilled to announce that a fan favorite, the Necromancer, is returning to slay and subjugate their enemies with necrotic magics. We had a blast working on this iconic class. Can't wait for you to get your hands on it. It has a storied history, taking a lot of care to give players an experience that lives up to the hype. We also spent a considerable amount of time making sure that fans of the D2, D3, and Immortal versions see something familiar. Something familiar, but with something unique for Diablo 4. All right, here we go. The Necromancer has two types of resources that they use, Essence and Corpses. That's what I expected. Essence is their primary resource. It restores itself automatically at a slow rate. Using basic skills on the Necromancer also generates Essence, allowing them to cast their skills more often. Corpses, on the other hand, are the leftover remains of enemies who died near the Necromancer. These remains can be used to summon skeletal minions or to power various other skills such as Corpse Explosion. In addition to appearing when enemies are killed near the Necromancer, corpses can also be generated via objects, giving you additional control over how often you want to interact with them. While there will be plenty of corpses at a baseline level, we're aware that some players will want to lean into this resource, and as a result have included many of options. So being a player for so many years, I'm already thinking of something. Okay. If the environment can grant you corpses, I can already envision a scenario in a dungeon where you kite a boss over to a bookshelf, wait for a specific moment, line up all of your multipliers, click the bookshelf, the corpses come down, and then you corpse explode and one-shot him. So as a tester, as a player, the very first thing I'm thinking about is, how can I exploit, it says effects, not objects. Corpses can also be various effects. Oh. Okay. Various effects. I guess it's not objects, it says effects. Huh. Okay. What does that mean? Does that mean the environment? I guess I just don't know what this means. If it means the environment, I'm already thinking of a way. I kite the boss over to a bookshelf, whatever, a chandelier, and then I activate all of my abilities, I click the bookshelf, and I corpse explode, and I one-shot the boss. Something like that. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm misinterpreting this. Yeah. Anyway, as far as weapons and other gear, necromancers use... Let's click on this link, by the way. What does this look like? Okay, so I guess this little red thing is indicating that it's a corpse. As far as weapons and other unique gear, necromancers use swords, daggers, wands, not wands, wands, focuses, and shields. In addition to these, they are also the only class that can use scythes. Necromancer weapons inventory. Okay, let's watch this. How's the volume there, guys? Good? Do I have this on slow mode? No. Okay, that's just how fast it is. Okay, now that looks pretty cool. Look how demonic she looks. This is looking pretty good. They kind of, even the way that their body is shaped and the way that they move kind of feels like an undead, corpsey kind of person. Not quite. They don't need like the chiropractor that like a witch doctor needs, but they need at least a couple visits a month. This is a much higher quality showing than what they showed yesterday on the stupid console. This is a much cooler, higher quality display. Now that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Additionally, what self-respecting necromancer would be running around the world of Sanctuary without curses? Happy to say that you will be able to put these nasty debuffs on your enemies to your heart's content, like Decrepify and Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden, old school Iron Maiden in Diablo 2 gives me nightmares. Isn't Iron Maiden what the, what are they called? The Oblivion Knights would cast in the Chaos Sanctuary and one-shot you? Am I getting my history right? Play styles. The Necromancer has 4 high-level playstyles that can be chosen: Bone, Darkness, Blood, and the Army. I think it would have been better to call it Army rather than the Army. Bone. Bone skills are relatively physical in nature and thus benefit more heavily from effects like Critical Strike. These skills also benefit from having and spending large amounts of essence. As they have various effects that can cause each of their individual attacks to be more powerful. Bone Spirit is back in Diablo 4. It now has a unique twist that exemplifies what bone skills are all about. Bone Spirit not only has a cooldown, but also consumes all essence that a player currently has. Once cast, a Spirit of Bone is conjured that seeks out the nearest enemy. Upon reaching them, the spirit will explode, dealing a high amount of damage to the target and all other targets in the area. This damage is increased by a certain percentage per point of essence spent, meaning that players who spend the maximum amount of essence will deal a significant amount of damage to enemies hit. So far, this sounds exactly like Boulder Toss for a barbarian. This skill can also be upgraded so that when it critically strikes, its cooldown is significantly reduced, meaning that players who commit to generating loss of essence while also having a high critical strike chance will get a lot of damage from this skill. Another bone skill that necromancers have access to is Bone Prison. When the player casts Bone Prison, they slam their weapon into the ground, calling forth a circular wall of bone to surround the targeted enemy or area. Enemies cannot move through the space while the Bone Prison persists, which makes it incredibly versatile and able to be combined with many other skills, even those that are not themed around bone. Bone Prison is great for blocking off hallways, trapping groups of enemies inside to set them up for an AoE attack, or for simply sectioning off a group of enemies to deal with later while you handle higher priority targets. This sounds exactly like the Necromancer that we currently know. Darkness. Darkness skills use shadow magic to overwhelm their enemies. These kinds of attacks tend to be dot-based or attack multiple times in a short window, with various benefits and rewards being granted for damaging enemies in this way. Darkness skills also tend to have various debuffs and crowd control elements so that they can keep their enemies at bay while they die a slow, painful death. Decompose is a basic darkness skill that allows you to channel dark magic onto enemies, dealing damage to them while also generating essence. Unlike other basic skills, Decompose also periodically summons corpses, making it much easier to ensure that you have a steady supply on hand to use for summoning skeletons. Another darkness skill is Blight. Blight launches a ball of dark energy in a direction. Upon hitting the enemy or expiring, it deals an explosion of damage while leaving behind a defiled area, dealing periodic damage to enemies inside over time. This skill deals a high amount of damage to enemies who are standing in place, whether it's due to fighting your undead minions or to being contained via other skills like Bone Prison. Seems a bit slow, but this is just a demonstration. Let me go back here. Let me see exactly what's happening here. So we're channeling. While we're channeling, a corpse was generated, which we summoned a skeleton out of. And we generated another corpse to spawn another skeleton, and then he dies. I'd like to see exactly what happens when he dies. Yeah, so my knee-jerk reaction to something like this is something that Diablo Immortal is kind of suffering from a little bit, which they are slowly fixing. In general, channeled skills like that are very, very hard to make work in an ARPG, because anytime that you cause the player to stand still and channel, the reward has to be tremendous because you always want to be on the move, right? Gathering more monsters, AoE detonating them. I'm not immediately writing off this skill or anything, and the concepts here are pretty cool. Blight, it throws a ball and then it leaves an explosion of damage and leaves behind an area. You could gather a big group of monsters, throw the Blight, have it explode, have the Blight pool, and then run circles around it to burn everybody down. It's almost like potentially a more powerful frozen orb even. That's cool. I would have liked to have seen that. I get very nervous whenever I see channeling skills, so that would be what I would test if I was playing a Necromancer. Are these channeling skills actually worth it? Necromancers can also use the power of blood magic to siphon the life from their enemies. Not only do these skills tend to have defensive-oriented benefits, but they have many ways to return that defense into offense, empowering them and rewarding them for having large amounts of maximum health, as well as keeping their current health total high. Blood Surge draws a small amount of blood from nearby enemies to the Necromancer and then expels a Blood Nova, dealing damage near the player's location. The damage of the Blood Nova is increased per enemy drain, which incentivizes you to be in the middle of the pack for maximum effect. Now this, if there was a skill like Blood Rush, you aggro a whole room of monsters, you're on the edge, you draw their blood, and then you blood rush into the center, and then you explode it and one-shot everything. Now this could be extremely powerful. Another blood skill is Blood Mist. Upon activation, the Necromancer disperses into a bloody mist, becoming temporarily immune to all damage while draining the life of nearby enemies that they pass through. This is a universally powerful defensive skill that can give you time to regroup. This is exactly what I was asking for. You gather a huge group of monsters. You go to the very edge and you blood nova or you blood surge to get your huge blood nova charge. You blood mist into the middle and then you detonate it and destroy everybody. Now this could be very powerful. Okay, what? So this is not possible from what I'm seeing here. We have to do it differently. So the cast is so the animation is so fast after you cast it that you can't like save it. Right? You can't save it and do what I was going to do. So instead the play becomes you gather the whole room, you bloody mist into the middle, and then you start spamming it. What's the range? Can you do it at the edge? Let's see here. So it hit the enemy at the far back, so maybe you don't have to blood mist in. And maybe there are like legendary powers that increase the range. Maybe you never have to go in the middle. The army. As you would expect, necromancers can summon the undead to do their bidding. We will also allow players to specialize in empowering their army as much as possible. Various kinds of skeletons, the golem. One advantage to this method of playing is that it can easily incorporate the benefits of bone, darkness, or blood skills, allowing you to have a great deal of customization on how you want to interact with your army. As an example, we believe it will be perfectly viable to have a player pursue a darkness-themed army build with Decompose as their basic skill to generate corpses, as there is an obvious synergy there. However, if a player wishes to generate corpses via other means, they can just as easily take a nostalgia trip to the year 2000 and just chuck bone spears at their enemies from a distance while opting for an all-bone skill synergies that the Necromancer has to offer. We went through a lot of iteration on how we want the experience of summoning the undead to feel for the player. Honestly, this makes me feel better than pretty much anything that I've read previously so far. This is what I'm always worried about. How much has this game actually been tested? Yeah, honestly, reading these words that they went through a lot, while doesn't make me feel, doesn't guarantee that it's great all on its own, is what I want to hear. On how we want the experience of summoning the undead to feel for the player, and how much of their skill bar should be dedicated to this part of the class. To that end, we've come up with what we feel is the best possible version to ensure that players have as much customization as possible over not only the army itself, but also in which other skills they want to use to support their own unique playstyle. If a player wants to have the maximum number of summoned units possible, then they will only have to dedicate 2 buttons to their skill bar, one to raising skeletons and the other for their golem. The raise skeleton button is a one-stop shop to raise all different skeletons a player can summon. The golem button is used to command the golem and to use a unique effect that is dependent on the type of golem that is currently active. With this setup, we found a great balance between having the necessary tools for raising and commanding a necromancer army while also leaving room for player expression in what additional skills they want to put on your bar. Thanks for the 11 months. Roddy, I appreciate it. Okay, so there's our golem. How many skellies do we have? Are these all of our skellies? Are these all us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so what one thing that Diablo Immortal does pretty well, and honestly, to some extent, you could say Diablo 3 did really well, now that I think about it. In general, Diablo 3 pet AI is one of the worst things of all time, right? It doesn't get much worse than Diablo 3 pet AI for them being intelligent on attacking the right target. But, that being said, hilariously enough, the the class in Diablo 3 whose pets actually seem to work the best are the Necros. Because, for example, the rat skeletal mages do incredibly well. They target the target that you command them on, and they follow you, and they're always attacking something. They did a pretty good job of this in Immortal as well. I'm playing a Necromancer. I'm literally playing a Necromancer right now. See, there are my summons. I'm literally playing right now. They did a pretty good job of this in Immortal as well. You can move your skellies. You can move your golem. Your skeletal mages are stationary, but they at least perpetually attack. The thing that I'm going to be very interested to see is, what happens when I actually summon my full army and start running forward. How smart are they? If I switch targets to a big boss, are they going to be scattered around the room, each meleeing one individual trash monster? Or will they be smart enough, or can I command them to go kill the boss? That's one thing that I would be wondering about having an army of pets. Okay, so now we're going to go to the Book of the Dead. Here we go. Speaking of armies, what self-respecting necromancer isn't wandering around with one? Well, actually, that might be you. While we absolutely have the full support you would expect to fulfill all your undead summoning needs, we're also giving some love to players who want a more independent playstyle. Is this image super hard to read for anybody else? Kind of hurts my eyes. Character, Book of the Dead. Skeletal Warrior, Skirmishers, Shadow, Blood. Okay, let's keep reading. Cue the Book of the Dead, the Necromancer's unique class mechanic. Right from the moment you log in, you will start with an extra skill on your bar, Raise Skeleton. This button, you will immediately be able to raise undead warriors to fight by your side. In addition to this, you will have access to the Book of the Dead. This is a space where you can customize your army, or lack thereof, with increasing options as you level your character. There are 3 customizable summons in this space: Skeletal Warriors, Skeletal Mages, and the Golem. Each summon also has one of the 3 specializations that you can choose from. As an example, you can have your Skeletal Warriors be Skirmishers, Defenders, or Reapers. Skirmishers are a more standard warrior but have increased damage and reduced health. Defenders have bonus health, and Reapers have slower attacks and deal damage in an AoE in front of them, and have a special wind-up attack that deals a high amount of damage. In addition to this, each specialized unit in the army has unique upgrades available to them, giving you even more customization over how each unit in their army functions in their overall playstyle. These units and upgrades will have synergies in various playstyles mentioned above, as well as other potential ways to play. So you pick Skeletal Warrior, Skirmishers. Then you pick upgrades, and there's sacrifice. Okay, so just one more time for clarity. Each summon has one of 3 specializations. Skirmishers are a standard warrior, more damage, less health. Defenders have more health. Reapers have slower attacks and deal AoE damage, have a wind-up attack. Okay, so they're letting you customize your skelly mages a little bit, or your summons a little bit. That was never a possibility in any of the other games, right? So if you really need your skeletons just to tank, you could make them defenders. Can't complain about that. That's cool. In addition to all this customization, we have also added the ability for players to sacrifice different components of their army for personal benefits. Next to each unit type in the Book of the Dead is an extra option to sacrifice the ability to summon that unit in exchange for a personal permanent buff. These buffs are carefully designed in place so that players can mix and match having none, some, or all possible summon units, while still having relevant options to enhance their build. Our goal with this system is that there should be something for everyone to be excited about. There are relevant, powerful options to choose from, whether players want to play with the full army, part of the army, or even those who wish to forego their army completely and play solo. We've had a blast with the system so far. We're excited to see the various combinations that you will come up with to push your Necromancers to the next level. We're so excited to be able to bring you the Necromancer. Can't wait to get it in your hands, whether you're a veteran player who's put in thousands of hours over many years or a new adventurer. We hope you'll have a lot of fun. Leave us feedback. So it looks like, if this is possible, I don't know if sacrifice is something that you can do mid-fight or something that you have to choose pre-fight. But let's say that it's not something that you choose before. If you can go into PvP with a big army, and then you've got like your blood skills to stay alive and move around. What are they called? The dark skills. You have your dark skills to curse them and make them slow, darkness skills. Then things start getting out of hand and you're losing. Then you could sacrifice your friends when they're about to die for personal buffs to you, and then start doing something else. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can sacrifice them mid-combat or if it's an option before you go in. Okay, so people are saying that you can't do that. Well, maybe you can't. It looks like you can't, but you never know. If you could sacrifice mid-fight, if that's a thing, that could be a crazy skill cap for a crazy skill level for Necromancers. They're like multiple phase bosses, right? You run in with your army, you're fighting, getting cursed. They're disappearing into the nether realm with their blood mist. And then you're about to kill their army, and then they sacrifice it. And you fight like a Super Saiyan version of the Necromancer itself. I don't know. Again, remember guys, my mind as a player is, how do I break things, or how do I extract everything possible out of, how do I, it's like a mosquito trying to suck blood from a mummy, how do I take advantage of this so they can either fix it or it becomes a very high skill cap for the class. Overall, my thoughts on this announcement, again, on the Necromancer itself, just to reiterate, I love Necromancers. I have nothing wrong with Necromancers. I'm literally playing a Necromancer right now, so I like them. This class felt like a very safe choice. We have 5 classes in Diablo 4 that we've already seen before. Rogue was in Diablo 1, Barb, Sorceress, Necro, and Druid are staples of the franchise. It was a pretty safe choice. When I first started reading this blog, it sounded pretty much exactly like the Necros that we've already seen. I was really hoping to hear something different. The fact that they have 4 different kinds of, and by the way, they didn't really talk about curses, did they? They said curses up here, and they did say darkness is kind of this slow dot-based thing, so maybe curses fall under darkness. So there are 4 different schools here, which is different, and the Book of the Dead does give you some customization, and we'll have to see how the sacrifice thing works. Can you do it mid-battle or not? It looks like not, but if you could, what can you do with that? It feels like the Necromancer that we already know, with some slight twists added to it. Maybe these things actually cultivate into a truly completely new experience. Maybe they do. But this seems like it's going to be very familiar. Instead of Blood Rush, we have Blood Mist. Instead of Death Nova, we have, what's it called? Blood Surge. It's just Blood Nova or Death Nova with a different name. Blood Mist is Blood Rush with a different name. Again, it's very hard to tell without playing the game. Very hard to tell how it feels. Very hard to tell how the AI is. It's impossible to tell how the AI is. You just have to play the game. Bone Spirit is the same. It does sound like a better Necro than the other ones. The changes do sound better. And I guess we'll just have to see. So I guess, yeah, that's the Necro blog. Nothing earth-shattering here. Nothing too crazy, nothing too surprising.